Right then, so going to have a look at the volume of a prism, but before we try and work these out, we're going to have a look at these couple of examples in just a second, work out the volume of them. Let's just establish what we actually mean by a prism, and you might wonder why I've just shaded in the ends of these things just here. So let me give you a couple of examples of what we mean by a prism. So I've got an example here. Well, it's a cube, but actually it's a prism. It's a type of prism because this part at the end runs all the way through. Okay, and then it pops out the other side. So some more examples up here. There's an example of a prism. We've got this section at the end, runs all the way through and out the other side. Okay, so that's an example of a prism. Okay, and if I were to slice it in the middle, then you'd be looking this bit here. It's called a cross section. This is kind of quite special because actually you could look at this in several directions and it would just be the same. But this one, I'd say it's a better sort of example of a prism because it's got that bit and it runs all the way through. Got here. Okay, we've got a cylinder. It's a cylinder, isn't it? But actually, it's a circular prism, and because it's got a circle at the end, and that runs all the way through, and circle comes out the other side. So if you sliced it, then you would still see that circle. I've got some examples, a couple of others. Obviously we might get different shapes at the end. Okay, this bit here, it's still a prism, okay, because it comes out the other side, right? It's an example of a prism. And if we know it's a prism, the reason I'm showing you this is because it then works. It shows to work out the volume is much easier to do. Let me show you something that's not a prism. Okay, so this object. So this object here is not a prism because which bit's going to be the cross section? It's not going to make sense, is it? I'll show you a couple more that are not prisms. Yeah, look, got Big Ben here. Right, Big Ben is not a prism because where would the cross section be? You could work out the volume. We're kind of doing it in chunks, right? So you could work out this section here, this bit, and maybe kind of divide it up again up there. So you could do it, but it'd be much harder to work it out precisely. And again, it is possible to work out the volume of this, but it's not easy to do. I'll show you another example that's not a prism. And here we go, look. Helicopter. Helicopter, of course, is not a prism. Where would the cross section be? But let's just take our helicopter away. There you go, it's just flown off. So there are examples of things that were not prisms, but these are prisms. Okay, so in principle, what you need to do to work out the volume, if you know it's a prism, is that you're going to work out the area of the end, the cross section, and then just multiply by the length. Right. So let's have a quick look at these examples. So I can have a look now about why I've just shaded these bits in. I've shaded that bit in because that's the cross section. This is the cross section. So if we look at how to do this, so the volume of this one just here would be, well, it's just a triangle at the end. So a triangle is going to be a half times the base multiplied by the height. Okay, so that bit there, that's given us the area of the cross section, and then we're going to multiply by 6 because that's the length. So a half times 4 is 2, multiplied that by 5 is 10, times by 6. You could pop all that in your calculator if you want to. Okay, so that'd be 60, and it's a volume, so it's centimetres cubed. All right. If we look at this one over here, so the volume equals, so we've got a circle at the end, so the area of a circle is pi r squared. So don't worry too much about kind of where that comes from just a second. Okay, so we've got pi times, so r was, so sorry, it's not very clear on there, is it? R is actually 2. right, where I sort of shaded over it. You can sort of distinguish between whether that was the diameter or the radius. So 2 squared, and then multiply that by 7. So this bit, that's the area of the cross section. We're going to multiply by 7 because we need to do the length there. So if I can pop these in. Now, it might be the case that, so I've got pi. Oh, there is a, just remember as well, there's a pi button just down here. Look, you just go shift this button down here. So, and then we're going to multiply by, so the radius was 2 squared, multiplied by 7. Okay, I can just pop it in like that. There you go, press equals. And it calculates actually trying to help you out a little bit, because a more precise answer is to write down 28 pi. We're not going to worry too much about that for the moment. You know, that's if I want the exact answer. So if I just press this little SD button just down here, that will put it into a decimal for me, and I'm quite happy just to write down that to 2 decimal places. All right. And centimeters cubed. Now, you might get one that's actually more of a compound area at the end. So, like, for example, if you remember this one, I would need to break this up into sections, right? So you might get one where it's got like if you can imagine a house, it would might have a triangle on top of a rectangle. So then you've got to just split it up, and you'd have to work out the area of the 2 shapes first, add those together. So you have to work out the area of the whole cross section at the end, and then multiply by the length. All right. So it doesn't really matter if it's a bit of an odd shape here, right? You can still do it. Now, if they wanted to make the question a little bit harder, well, obviously this area here would be harder. So this question, what it would probably do is it would probably tell you the area of this bit. It would probably tell you our length, and then you can work out the volume. So it would just tell you this bit. What it could do as well, I suppose, is maybe it tells you the volume, and it tells you this area, and then you've got to figure out this bit. So that would be, you'd be dividing then. You'd have to work backwards because you know what the answer is. So you'd have volume divided by this bit would give you that length just there. All right. So you can have a go at a few questions, and hopefully you should do okay with those.